March 2013. I'm your host, Teresa Wippel, and today we are here interviewing Ron Wambolt, who is candidate for position 3 on the Edmonds City Council. Ron, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me and doing this service for our citizens.
You bet. I'd like to start out by having you tell folks about your background and also why you're running for City Council.
Okay. Well, as a lot of people probably know, I grew up in Eastern Canada. And after I completed my schooling there, I went in the Air Force. Spent only 3 years in the Air Force, but it was a very valuable 3 years. I received in-depth training in electronics, got to spend a year in Germany and some time in what was then French Morocco. It's Morocco now. After finishing my term in the Air Force, I returned to Halifax, Nova Scotia, that precise place, and worked for a company there for 5 years. And during that period of time, got married and had 4 children. My wife had 4 children. And went to work after about 5 years for another company whose headquarters happened to be in Montreal, and they transferred me to the headquarters in Montreal. Worked for that company for 5 years, and then took on a new career with a company headquartered in Oregon. I worked for their subsidiary in Canada, eventually became general manager of the company there, and then in 1974 I was transferred to the headquarters down in Beaverton, Oregon, where I stayed another 5 years. Everything seems to be in 5 years. And this opportunity came along at Fluke, where I was invited to join them as manager of international operations. So I moved up here, settled in Woodway at the end of 1979, lived there for 23 years, gradually became a senior vice president at Fluke, responsible for worldwide marketing, sales, and service. I had 40% of the company's employees, about 1,000 employees, were in my organization. Then I retired in 1967. After a few years, we decided that this 1-acre property in Woodway was a little bit too much for us, and decided we wanted to move to a condo in downtown Edmonds. Around that time, I'm thinking about selling our home. The big deal was on with the Brightwater. King County wanting to put a wastewater treatment plant at Point Edwards. Mm-hmm. And there was a movement against that of Edmonds people, and my wife and I were the Woodway representatives in that organization. As it's history now, we were successful, stopped it. Now we have 261 condominiums there. And that kind of started my life as an activist. Mm-hmm. When I first got involved, I really never knew the difference between the role of a mayor and a city council member. I used to blame Gary Hawkinson for all this stuff he had nothing to do with. So I got educated, and a number of people urged me to become a city council member, and so I ran for city council in 2005. Or up to now, and was successful. Then in the election of 4 years ago, I lost in the primary by 3 votes. They did a recount, turned out to be 7 votes. So I said, that's the end of politics probably for me. But this cycle came along, a bunch of different knowledgeable citizens urged me to do it. It didn't take a whole lot of urging from them because I enjoyed being a city council member. So I'm back there working hard to be elected once again.
Mm-hmm. Back to the same seat you were on before.
Exactly, the same one. Yeah, that's the one I was asked to run for.
Okay, all right. And what was it about the job that you enjoyed, and what inspires you to go back?
Well, what I enjoyed is being able to contribute. I believe I added value to the proceedings during council meetings, and being able to resolve issues for citizens. In fact, just knowing who the right people are in the city, you can get a lot of things done. In my doorbelling that I've been doing the last 3 months, probably half a dozen situations I've been able to sort out for citizens by not me doing it personally, but getting them in touch with the right person in the city, because generally they don't know who to contact.
Yeah.
So I find it very rewarding.
Okay. What do you think is the most important issue facing Edmonds today?
Well, probably everyone will agree in this. It's in the financial area. We need to restore critical services that have been cut. There's been good financial news, as you know, come out in the last few weeks, and it's looking right now like the city will be able to balance the budget on an annual basis for the next several years. However, that's with the assumption that there are no new ongoing expenses committed to. One-time things, a few can be tolerated. But what it means is we won't have the ability to restore the police cuts or the parks budget for parks maintenance or street overlays, and those are all things we need to address.
And of course, one of the issues that you've been very aware of, as have most folks, the proposal by the Port of Edmonds to incorporate, well, I'm going to get this right eventually.
Yeah. It's not
The
a
Harbor
simple
Square,
thing.
I've written about this so many times that I'm
Right.
just not coming out. But in any case, the Port proposal to incorporate the Harbor Square master plan into the
Right.
city's comprehensive plan. See, I got it right.
Right.
And of course, the Port withdrew their plan after they didn't get support from the majority of the council to do what they were hoping to do.
Right.
And now we're kind of at a point where the council, it's still out there, the council's looking at it, has decided to have a decision tree where they'll kind of make some decisions about where they might want to go next. What do you think should happen with that proposal?
I think they need to listen to what the Port, pay attention to what the Port did and just forget it. I think I just read, in fact, I read a letter in my Edmonds News, I think, wasn't it yesterday, I believe, from ACE. I think John Reed's suggestion was right on the money. I think the council has wasted all too much time on it now. And I don't know what they can accomplish. Maybe they might go and make some revisions that the Port was seeking, but that doesn't mean the Port's going to come back and do anything. There probably needs to be a several-year cooling off period.
So you think just starting from scratch, starting over, moving on is better?
Yeah, and you know what might be best too, if during that period of time an actual developer came along with a proposal, because all this stuff from the Port was conceptual. It's a plan they put together that penciled out financially, that they were hopeful would attract a developer to pursue. But there's no guarantee a developer would put up anything that was precisely what was being proposed. Economy is improving. There is more development happening, and maybe there will be some developer come along with a proposal, an actual concrete proposal that the city can consider.
Okay. And you mentioned the budget and the fact that, things are looking better.
Yep.
Although, as you say, there's still some things that we don't have money to do, such as the infrastructure
Right,
issues with the
exactly.
streets and the sewer and the water lines
Yep.
and all of that. So what do you think needs to happen to address those issues? I mean, I know we've tried a levy and that didn't go over
Yeah.
so well. And what is an answer that you're thinking
Well,
would be
The
reasonable?
quickest answer there would be is if we could put together enough land up on Highway 99 to attract 2 new car dealerships, because most people don't realize just how much revenue we get from those new car dealerships. One of them brings us as much revenue from sales tax as the entire downtown. Now, it is becoming better known because our financial director that we had for a year and a half, Sean Hunstock, did include in the budget for 2013 all the sources, the different sources of sales tax, and that's the first time it's been in the budget. So anyone that wants to know where the money comes from, it doesn't identify the precise companies it comes from, but the classes.
Right.
But anyway, that's not likely to happen. I've served in the Highway 99 Task Force for 8 years, and we haven't been able to come up with land there. I am disappointed that the task force has not been meeting regularly at all. We finally had a meeting just last Monday, and I think we're reinvigorated now, and there's lots of things we can do there. But basically, I think that the solution has to be development. With more development, we have to broaden the tax base. We can't just keep jacking up people's property taxes as it is. They're going to go up next year because values have gone up. Property values have gone up for the first time since 2009, so people are going to see an increase in their property taxes. We need to have more development, which will bring us more sales tax when the construction occurs, more property tax on an ongoing basis, more real estate excise tax as property trades hands, and there are places where that can be done. There will be a project coming to the ADB, Architectural Design Board, September 4th, their next meeting, for the post office property. Many people were shocked to learn that the government never actually owned the post office. They leased it for 50 years, but it was purchased by a developer more than 3 years ago now, and he's been trying to develop it, but the city hasn't been cooperating too much with him. He was hopeful of the city adopting the possibilities of development agreements. Why he wanted a development agreement, the development agreements were one of the elements of many proposals that came from the planning board, but the city council never acted on it. The development agreement would allow him to get up to 5 additional feet of height for other concessions, like it had to be a LEED gold building, and it's for certain applications. One of them is a post office, which will be in the first floor of this building he has proposed. More open space and so on. But he couldn't wait anymore. He tried for 3 years, so now his proposal going to the city council will be one less floor that he wanted. There will be several less apartments than he wanted, so the rents are going to be higher. He had promised that if he got that one extra floor, he could lower all the rents by $200 a month. Well, we talk about having housing that's more affordable, but we just don't implement any actions that make it possible. You know, we're not going to get more affordable housing without going a little higher. Mm-hmm. There are sometimes a little more height is detrimental, and I'll give you an example. Not too many years ago, there was a proposal to increase the height limit in the core downtown from 30 feet to 33 feet. It doesn't sound like much, 3 feet, but I strongly oppose that one because what it would allow is 3-story buildings in the core downtown. We don't have any. There is not a single 3-story building in the BD1 zone. They're all 2 stories. So if you went up to 3-story, it would change the character of the downtown somewhat. However, if you go to that post office property, which is flat, relatively flat, so they don't get any advantage out of height, or any height advantage out of the slope that's there, it would be detrimental really to nobody. It's been shown it will block nobody's view. It's all pluses. I mean, just having this, what do I call it, height paranoia or something. There's just so much opposition to the height increase. I think it becomes, and sometimes it's counterproductive, like in the situation of the post office.
Well, and let's talk about that, because it's almost like you mention the word height in any context in Edmonds when you're a politician. And it's almost like you're scared to say the word.
Yes. And
it is a flashpoint. However, I don't know how and I have no way of knowing this because I've not conducted my own survey, but I always wonder how much of a flashpoint it is for the majority, and I don't think anybody can really say.
Right.
But the point is that, you know, you're saying that word as a candidate for city council, and, you know, you've got your, you know, disclaimers and reasons and, you know, where you think it's okay and not. But does any politician in Edmonds run the risk of not being successful by even talking about the issue?
Well, we'll find out.
I guess that was kind of a loaded
I think
question.
you summarized it quite well, but what a lot of people don't understand is that, yes, we have a 30-foot height limit in all the downtown, but there's virtually no building that's that low because of the way height is measured by averaging the four corners. All of those new buildings along, relatively new, anything built in the last 10 years, these mixed-use buildings, multifamily buildings, are all well over 30 feet at the street level. Some of them are up to 38 feet, legally, because of the slope. They can get that extra height. So somebody trying to build on totally flat land is somewhat disadvantaged. Now, when I was on city council, we did change some heights. We created 2 new zones up in Highway 99 and a lot of people probably don't know this. The CG zone is 60 feet height limit, and the CG1 or CG2, I guess it is 75 feet. So there's 2 zones up there, 60 feet and 75 feet. And if it hadn't been for the downturn in the economy, we would have had a lovely development at the corner of 220th and 99, across from the Mountain Lake Terrace Gambling Casino.
Right,
That was going to be a $160 million project. So unfortunately that went away. But back to where there's chances for development and where the code needs to be looked at. When I was on city council last time, I worked with another council member to get some code revisions for Firdale Village. There were not 4 votes in the city council for the code as was proposed because there were, as they said, there were too many shoulds in it and not enough shalls. A should doesn't commit you. So the other council member and I ended up changing, I still remember this, 47 shoulds to 47 shalls. Well, the consequence of all that is they've never been able to attract a developer. So one of the first things I would do if I am fortunate enough to get elected again is go work with that with the property owner, I should say, for the village, find out what is the problem, why aren't developers attracted to this property, and see what we need to do to get that moving. I think even the people throughout that Firdale area, they all recognize that has to be redeveloped. Another thing, just to backtrack on this post office property again, if that gets all, the first phase will be in the parking lot that's there. It'll be, it has to be retail on the first floor, and part of that, the major part of that retail will be the new post office, and then there will be apartments above that. Once that's completed, the post office will be demolished. That's there today. And the developer is hopeful to attract a hotel operator to put a small hotel there. We get that done, it should reinvigorate that whole area, which needs to be, you know, south of there needs to be reinvigorated as well.
Okay.
So I think development is the answer to getting more money, and you know, we have to do this development anyway because the Growth Management Act says we have to grow our population by 5,000 by the year 2025. We don't have any choice in that.
And that's the state, that's a state regulation.
The state, and you need to pay attention to the Growth Management Board. A good example of somebody that didn't is Woodway. When they had that big area to be developed, which is called Woodway Meadows, the developers had proposed 2 homes per acre. Woodway said no, that's one too many. So the developer sued the town. It ended up with the Growth Management Board, and guess what? They said 2 is not enough. It's 4 per acre. So you know, if you listen to the things that maybe the minority want, you may end up with a lot of undesirable things for the majority.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how that message resonates during the campaign, and as, you know, because I do think that people, those who pay attention anyway,
Yeah.
and again, I honestly believe that there's a lot of people who just are not, they're too busy to really pay attention.
Yeah.
But for those who are very vocal about it, it seems like that's definitely a flash point for
Yep.
them. So speaking of flashpoints, here's a good segue. Let's talk about the recent ordinance involving our beloved cats in Edmonds. You knew I was going to bring this up. So as we know, the recent animal roaming ordinance that had been passed originally did not include cats in it. So in other words, cats were allowed to roam free, even though other animals were supposed to be, under the control of their
Correct. Yeah.
owners.
That was the case for 1 year.
Right, for 1 year, correct. So do you think the council made the right decision in voting to include cats in that?
Absolutely, they made the right decision.
Okay.
I was on the city council when that came to us, and we spent a frustrating amount of time on it. And initially, I was opposed to it. And then I was educated by a bunch of people, and they've been some of the same people, I don't recall, but people, experts, like who testified at the meeting last week, who point out to the dangers of having cats place their waste in vegetable gardens and so on. Did get mischaracterized, as you well know, as a cat leash law, which was never part of the legislation. So I think the council did the right thing. Getting back to where we were before it got revised a year ago was actually unfortunate. It happened a year ago, and it probably shouldn't have happened. It was a mixture of one new person on the council, and I think someone made a mistake when they revised the material. So now it's where it should be, and people don't need to be really overly concerned about it, because the ordinance will only be enforced on a complaint basis. There's not going to be police running around seeing if there are any cats on the loose, just like they don't for dogs. It's only be on a complaint basis, and that's probably going to be quite rare.
All right.
Like any all the ordinances, the one that I had the biggest problem with, being a walker, is the condition of our sidewalks. I shouldn't say the condition of, but the blockage on our sidewalks from vegetation growing up. There's some areas you have to walk out in the street. You can't walk on the sidewalk because there's vegetation on. I think we could do a better job, be more proactive in enforcing those ordinances.
Okay. Well, here's a question that I think you'll probably have an answer for. Some critics have said that the city council does too much micromanagement of city affairs. How do you feel about that? Think that's true?
Yes,
The current city council.
I think the critics are correct. They try to delve into details that are not for policymakers. I actually, just at the last council meeting last week, when they were once again discussing this interim ordinance, and one of the council members, they were going into great detail on this, about how much time they had spent with staff discussing this issue. And one of the council members said, look, that'll all get sorted out when it goes to the planning board. And that council member, of course, was absolutely right. They should not have been fooling around with it. I think that, from what I can tell, there are a couple of council members utilizing too much of the staff's time, and sooner or later the mayor's going to put the kibosh on that. In some cities, there's no way you can go directly, the council members cannot go directly and talk to staff. It has to be all done through the mayor. In this city, we're fortunate that the council can the mayor allows council members to deal directly with staff. But if their time is being wasted, that's will eventually come to an end.
Okay. Talking about the city's reserve fund for litigation, which it's currently at $215,000, which is
And
less
shrinking.
than, yeah, shrinking, basically. So the question is should we be replanting it, replenishing it before we start looking at, other uses for that surplus?
Well, maybe this is one I'm not as well versed in as I should be, but I thought there was a plan to put so much percentage of the general fund in that contingency fund each year. Maybe I'm wrong
Okay.
about that. I could be wrong with that one. But yeah, I mean, you need, with the lawsuit litigations we're currently involved with, we need to have some money there to take care of those things. And right now, there obviously is not an adequate amount. And in fact, I'm not sure there's much of anything left in it right now. With the 2 settlements they paid out in the last little while,
Right.
91,000 not very long ago. And I think it was also around 90,000 just a few weeks before that. So, if you're anticipating those kind of expenses, you should be prepared for them.
If you were going to point to what you think Edmonds' greatest strength and greatest weakness is, what would those 2 things be?
Strength, we have a downtown. I mean, there's nobody around us has a downtown. Lake Teresa doesn't have a downtown. Shoreline doesn't have a downtown. Linwood doesn't have a downtown. And one thing I find in going around and talking to citizens is they just love living in Edmonds, and they should. Greatest weakness. That's a good one. I've never really given that question any thought. I suppose it's a weakness. It's not a relative weakness because every municipality has financial problems these days. But it is a concern that we don't have the money to do the things that we used to have the money to do until about 10 years ago when the motor vehicle excise tax went away. If you look at our roads, there hasn't been, the only overlays that have been done in recent years have been because of grants. You have to wonder, how is it that years ago we could afford all these infrastructure things, stronger police force? There's the police force. 3 police officers had to be cut this year. We had to cut the school resource officer earlier, and the DEER program. We had one more deputy police chief. Can't afford those things now, so I think all that stuff is the declining strength of our infrastructure is probably our biggest weakness.
Right. We are actually almost to the end of our time, so if you could tell voters watching this program what you would like them to remember you by most when they see your name on the ballot, what
Right.
would that be?
Well, probably as everybody knows, being a city council member is a part-time job. But I'll treat it, I'll work so hard you'll think it's a full-time job. I'll be responsive. I always pride myself on anybody that emailed me with any question when I was on, or telephoned me, I responded. Doesn't go into a dark hole, so they'll have my attention. They may not always get the answer that they want, but it'll be addressed. And they want to learn more about me, just go to my website at ronwambolt.org. There's lots of information there.
Okay. And Wambolt.
That's it.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. Somebody might be guessing about how to spell it.
So
Thank you so
thank you.
much. Yeah, thanks
Thank
so
you.
much for coming by, and I wish you the
And
best
thanks
of luck.
again. Thanks very much.